with what Tyson Fury did to Deontay Wilder. It was the first time you really saw him fighting off his back foot, and he had never been beaten that way too. And then firing Mark Breland, his longtime cornerman. A lot of things are different for this camp.
Yeah. I think that was a problem, firing Mark Breland. I mean, because they were really close. And then not only did he fire him, but he badmouthed him afterwards by saying that he was working with Fury in spiking his water. So it was. I mean, Mark Breland took that very personally, as anyone would, Yeah,
of course.
So I don't know. It's gonna be weird this time around.
Even the press conference, he wasn't talking or anything.
Yeah, he
his
didn't,
coach had
say
to
a
talk.
word really. He just had his headphones in.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see, during that fight week, is he gonna do any interviews, address media, or?
I'm not sure.
It'll be interesting.
We'll see. Yeah.
I heard that because I'm part of Everlast now, and Wilder is a part of Team Everlast, so Everlast has to do photo shoots and whatnot. But I heard that Wilder wasn't allowing anybody to come into his camp, so he's I just heard that he locked down his camp and didn't want connections with the outside world. I don't know.
All right. Well, hey, we're rolling. Episode 77. Let's start this thing off. Welcome back to the Schmozone podcast. This is episode number 77. I'm Dave Schmulenson, a.k.a. the Schmo. My co-host is
Helen Yee with Helen Yee Sports.
And today's guests, awesome people. I feel like we're catching you guys before the world catches you, which I'm still shocked as to how you guys are still kind of, I would say, under the radar. Biaggio Ali Walsh and Nico Ali Walsh, the grandchildren of the infamous Muhammad Ali, and obviously athletes in your own right. Thanks for joining the Schmozone today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate you guys coming on, man.
Yeah, first off, I love both of your shirts, and especially the Unfinished Legacy.
Oh my God! I saw this company on Instagram, and this guy's out of LA, and I saw the butterfly, and me and Biaggio, our whole family love skeletons and Halloween, that kind of thing, and his whole company is based off of butterflies and skeletons, and the name is Unfinished Legacy. So I was like, that's perfect.
Kind of coincidental, right?
Fitting, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I reached out to him, and he was like, your grandfather and Nelson Mandela, MLK, those kind of guys is how I thought of the company. So I was like, I need a couple shirts.
That's
so
great.
I'm definitely repping them today.
My favorite jacket is the Schmo that I wear to all my favorite combat sports events.
Is that the blue one?
It's one
right?
of them.
Okay.
But I have this purple one, and it's got
with
butterflies.
The
And
yeah.
every time I wear that, I think of Muhammad.
Yeah.
I think
Dope.
of especially because I got to be in that event, in that arena, the special ambience of it.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I see butterflies and I'm around combat sports, it's always my first thought.
And that's what you tell people too, who ask you. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's like.
That's exactly right. And that's why when I saw it, I'm like, because I tried to wear the most loud jackets possible as that character. But
of course.
Obviously, that's not the case today, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we were just looking, I guess we'll just start with you. You're looking at me, and we're going to get to everything, too. I'm a huge football fan, and I'm all sports fan in general. But I think it was August 25th, you got announced for the second pro fight you have lined up for next month.
October 23rd?
Yes.
October 25th, it was announced.
And then
October
the 14th was your pro debut.
August 14th.
Yeah, August 14th.
Yeah, no, it was, super exciting. You saying, it's crazy how, we're talking about August, it's almost the end of September. It's crazy. Time is going by so fast, especially this year. But, October 23rd, we're back in Atlanta for my second fight. And it's going to be really, really exciting, I think.
So now that some time has passed, even though it's only been, about a month, but have you had the chance yet to kind of reflect on some of those emotions? Because I'm sure there were not only, a lot of pressure, but maybe expectations for yourself in the pro debut?
Yeah, I mean, it was a ton of pressure, which I was kind of avoiding in interviews saying, but obviously it's a ton of pressure, but it's mainly for the first fight. I would say that after you get the first fight out of the way, everything is smooth sailing. That's the way I see it. That's the way that other professional fighters that I look up to, that's what they've said. Just so much pressure going into, somewhere that I've never been before, especially with this whole larger than life legacy, all that stuff. But I mean, we were able to handle it pretty well. Biagio was the only person, in the family that wasn't nervous, I would say.
Yeah, I wasn't nervous.
aside from myself, which I thank God I wasn't nervous, but like my parents were so nervous. Everyone around me was nervous except for my coaches, me and Biagio, and that's the way I want to keep it.
21 years old, pro debut, major promotion and Top Rank, where I know they have tons of footage, legacy footage in the archives of Muhammad that no one else has, and some people haven't even seen before, especially in the public. But also, too, do you think it kind of helped you that you had this debut in kind of what I'd call this pandemic COVID era, where probably a lot less media and attention to it than there would have been if, let's say, we didn't have this pandemic going on right now?
Yeah, the plan that they had for me right when I met with Bob Arum to sign with Top Rank was to start off slow, a little bit. Like, I'm not going to be fighting in Madison Square Garden for my first fight. They made it a point to not do that. So I think with COVID and everything, I think the stars just aligned. Everything happened, perfectly the way it did. I would say.
While wearing your grandfather's trunks.
Yeah. No, and that was interesting because I wasn't supposed to wear them. And Biagio and my mom know that, I've kept these trunks for so many years. I got them after I got them as a gift after my grandfather had passed away, just as like a memento. I wasn't supposed to wear them the night of the fight. I just brought them with me as like a good luck charm. But my shorts weren't ready. My Everlast shorts weren't ready. So I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to wear these shorts. So it was literally the night before the fight that I found out I was wearing them.
It was fate. It was meant to be.
Yeah, no, that's how
That's
how
awesome.
it feels. That's how it feels, definitely.
A lot of coincidences happening right now, but I don't believe in coincidences. So
You believe everything happens for a
Happens
reason.
for a
Of course,
reason,
and
yep.
that my whole family does. Everything does happen for
Yeah.
a reason. Everything, yeah.
And so just to put for our audience to understand the perspective of the lineage, your mother's father is Muhammad Ali. Your aunt is Layla Ali, too, who also has a excellent boxing career herself, too.
Yeah.
So it totally runs deep in your family. But, with your names, too, Nico and Biagio, there's obviously, probably I'm assuming on your dad's side, Italian roots as well.
Italian,
Definitely.
Irish, definitely Italian over here.
Yeah.
No, my dad's family, I think it's Sicily.
Sicily, yeah. It's funny, when I went to Milan last year for COVID for some work, like some photo shoot, they all got my name right in Italy. And usually in the States, they say like Bellagio or something. They'll usually, like, sometimes they'll get my name wrong. But in Italy, they all got it right. And I was like, yeah.
I think
this
Biagio
awesome,
is like the John of, the U.S.
It's
you know?
the most common. Yeah.
It's crazy, yeah.
But in
no.
Italy, so.
I didn't
Were
get a
you
chance to go.
were you both born in Chicago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you moved to Las Vegas in your childhood? And
Yeah,
what
I was like 6. Nico was like 4, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I don't
grew up
remember
here.
Chicago as a kid. He does, but all our childhood summers were spent in Chicago. Even when we lived out here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what got me hooked on sports is growing up in the 90s, Michael Jordan, to me. I look at icons in sports. I look at, like, my Mount Rushmore, the people who I look at sports. I think of Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, Babe Ruth, Muhammad Ali. That's what I look at as icons in sports. And obviously, you got someone like Tom Brady now.
Yeah.
I think 5-10 years down the line. I mean, he's already the greatest football player of all time, but he's in that icon conversation.
For
sure. It's just a timing thing because he's still
and
playing
I think
right
he
now.
solidified that with the taking the Bucks to the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah.
And winning, like.
Oh yeah.
I think he really sealed the deal in that.
And you're a football player, and
I used to play football. Yeah.
So
Helen's
when
got
I used to
stories.
work for NBC Sports locally, and this was a couple years ago, around like 2016-ish, and I remember the talk of the town, especially in football, was Biaggio Ali Walsh. Like, where is he gonna go to college? And I remember even at the radio station, they're like, make sure go to the Gorman games and go cover it and stuff like that. So can you kind of give us, because I know you went to Berkeley.
Yeah,
right,
I went
for
to
2
Cal.
seasons?
Yeah, I played there for 2 seasons, and
Yeah.
then I transferred. I used the transfer portal to come back to UNLV, and I played another season here. It was the eligibility took a long time because
Yeah.
I was transferring, and it was like brand new. The transfer portal was like brand new, so it took some time to get eligible. But once I got eligible, I played a little bit, got some injuries going on, and then that was like my last season of football. So now I'm like trying to get into personal training and stuff like that. And
Yeah, I follow your Instagram, and I
Yeah.
see you're always like working with a lot of like even pros and stuff, right?
yeah.
He works with a lot of the MMA guys.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen that.
Yeah.
So how did you transition into that?
So I was talking to my old strength and conditioning coach from UNLV, who was also my old strength and conditioning coach at Gorman, Sandor Manuel.
Okay.
I was talking to him, and he was working at this place called the Institute that was on Buffalo. And I said, yeah, like, let me come in and just, shadow you for a little bit. And I started to really like it. So I started doing an internship there. And now I'm kind of like just splitting my ways and trying to find my own, separate thing.
Are you
That's
at the
awesome.
institute now still?
No, I'm not there anymore. So I'm trying to get my certification for personal training.
Awesome.
But I've also been training over at Extreme Couture for like almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
So a lot of the guys that I was working with also go to Extreme Couture. So
Of course.
That's
It's
awesome.
one of the hottest gyms right now. in
yeah,
MMA.
I love it. I love it there. I go there every day, and I'd love it.
They're always great to us. We have
Yeah.
a great relationship with Coach Eric Nixick, and
Yep.
I know a lot of people like Dan Ige's there.
Yep.
I was just there. I had a crazy interview with Sean Strickland, but he's
Mm-hmm.
one of those nomad
Yeah, that
fighters that,
was-
Yeah.
goes to all different gyms just to look to spar fresh bodies. Interesting cat there.
Yeah.
Yeah, great gym.
Excellent gym. So athletics as a kid, though, so you went the football route. You've obviously gone the boxing route.
Right.
Was that kind of pushed on you guys, or is that something you fell into growing up?
Nico?
Boxing was never pushed on me. Obviously, we were around it. There's photos of me at 3 years old with like big Everlast boxing gloves on. I didn't know what I was doing at that time, but it's just been around the family. I would say
Yeah.
athletics has always been around the family, but I tried out football. I want to say for 2 days or something, and I didn't like the team aspect of it.
Yeah.
So I went into something that I knew a little bit about, which was boxing, and then I stuck with that.
I kind of fell into football. Elementary school, we were just playing like a game on the field, and my PE teacher asked me, he's like, kind of fast, like, you ever play football? I'm like, no. So we both played flag football when we were young, like fourth,
Right,
fifth grade, And then I stopped, tried football again, tackle for the first time, 7th grade, hated it. And I took another year off, and we were supposed to move back to Chicago, and I was going to try football out again back in Chicago. We were thinking about going to like Marist High School in Chicago, and we ended up staying here in Vegas because my dad saw a Gorman game. He's like, oh, we got to stay here in Vegas. Like, Gorman's like football, top tier, So we ended up staying here in Vegas.
Well, how was it on that note, like playing football for Gorman? Because I've
man.
heard like some stories. Obviously, they're the powerhouse, right?
Yeah.
But what was that atmosphere like? Because I've heard, some people say it's like really intense.
Yeah. The football aspect?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very very intense, very disciplined, very
You got to
militant,
mention
yeah.
Gorman was the best year of Gorman was when he was
Who's
the best
quarterback
team.
again? Is it the guy? Was Kellen Munn the quarterback at the time?
Tate Martell was.
Tate Martell
yeah.
was.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But their team, of the 4
Yeah.
years that he was there, even the year before, no, the 4 years he was there was the best Gorman
Yeah.
team.
It was.
Yeah.
I never lost a high school
Team.
football game.
Yeah,
It's
I
crazy.
remember
I mean,
it-
we
it
went
was the
completely
talk.
undefeated.
crazy.
But discipline is what made us so great,
You bring up Tate Martell. So before I created the Schmo, when I was working at USA Today, I would cover the Nike Elite 11 football camp, which was in Redondo Beach, and he was the hottest prospect at the time. And there was a lot of good quarterbacks, like Tua. I know I think Tua might have won that competition. That was like the first time the nation in high school kind of saw Tua's talent, and then he was recruited by Saban, Alabama, and everything.
Yeah.
But Tate Martell, man, he would get all the attention and everything, and didn't he go from like Ohio State to Miami, and now he's at UNLV again,
Yeah.
and he's still playing? He's an interesting story.
Yeah, very interesting, because before that he was, I think in 8th grade he was committed to Washington.
Yeah.
And then decommitted in high school, committed to Texas A&M while we were playing, I think our senior year, and then decommitted and then went to Ohio, and now he went to Miami, and I think he's back at UNLV now. So, yeah, it's interesting to see what's next for him,
It is, too, but it's like, at each stop, it's like he's been out-dueled by the quarterback at that time. He didn't get the starting role, and then it seemed like he left to a place where he feels like he can start.
Honestly, with him, I wish he would have stayed Mountain West or Pac-12. I feel like he'd be a better quarterback in that kind of conference. That's just my opinion, though. So I feel like he would have done really good if he stayed Pac-12 or Mountain West.
And when you played at Berkeley, weren't you close, or you were texting with Marshawn Lynch, right?
Yeah. I talk to him all the time.
Do you still talk to him?
I saw him at the Institute not too long ago. And I was like, yo, like, it's been a couple of years. Like, how you been? He's like, hey, I'm good. He's just shooting hoops and stuff. But, yeah, I talked to him a lot before I went to Berkeley. And I saw him a lot when I was there, too. And, man, he's hilarious. He's hilarious. He's a funny guy. He's a great guy, too.
How did you guys kind of get linked up?
So my grandmother, my step-grandma, who was married to my grandfather, she had a connection with him and someone that he knew. And she ended up getting headphones and sending them to me, and I somehow gotten in contact with him, and we exchanged numbers, and I just called him one day and on FaceTime we started FaceTiming. Yeah,
we just awesome.
Started talking sense.
That's awesome.
Marshawn was actually the first person to text me right after my grandfather passed, like the night of.
Wow.
Like when it was on the news, he was the first person to text me and be like, hey, like, are you okay? And he didn't have to do that,
Yeah.
So I really respected him a lot after that.
I'll never forget, even when he was at Cal, when he took the golf cart and would drive around the field.
Yep.
Skittles, the post-fight stuff. That run he did against the Saints in the playoffs, man.
That was ridiculous.
Beast mode was unreal. He was such a great talent, too. And he was drafted, I remember, to Buffalo, and he didn't really take off to Buffalo. And then when he switched over to Seattle, his career spiked.
I think that run against the Saints is what really,
changed everything.
Blew everything up. That was beast mode.
I love that name, beast mode.
Yeah.
Great branding.
Yeah.
Excellent branding. I wanted to get your opinions, though, too, on kind of the state of boxing and where we are in this whole boxing world, because it seems like where this generation is and where all the talk is, obviously everybody talks about the Paul brothers. If your grandfather was still alive, where would he kind of see the state of boxing, and would he be on board with how things are kind of turning in this direction?
My opinion has changed so much on that.
Yeah.
But I would say overall, I can't speak for my grandfather. He had exhibitions of his own. He fought with, he had an exhibition with, I think it was a kickboxer.
Or a wrestler or something
like that. And he had also another exhibition with a football player. So exhibitions, weird matchups like Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul is not the first time you've heard of that. But I mean,
it does draw eyes.
It draws eyes.
I gotta
sport.
you gotta give credit where credit's due. It's
right.
bringing a lot of eyes to the boxing world. A lot of people are talking about boxing more than I thought.
Yeah.
So you gotta respect that.
And that's not the first time I've heard that question. So just you guys talking about it. There's millions of other people talking about it.
100%. But I look at that question and I'm like, how did we get to this point? How did boxing get into a position where someone like a Jake Paul or Logan Paul, someone completely no background really, I guess they were wrestlers too in high school, get into this sport and kind of are the talk of town of the sport? Like, how did we get to this point?
I think social media has a big thing to do with that, because ever since social media, you got more followers, more views, whatever, and they had already had a big established fan base, and they just brought that over to boxing by getting into boxing, so.
You know what I think is every I would say with boxing especially, every time there's a fight, you need to have a villain. Like, there's got to be a villain to every story. And I really feel like Floyd Mayweather was the villain for the longest time. Everyone was going, he was Money May. He didn't want to be liked by anybody. And I feel like a majority of people wanted to see him lose to Pacquiao. A majority of people wanted to see him lose to McGregor, and he left the sport. So now there's like a new villain being, the Paul brothers. So I guess it's entertaining is what it is really.
So it's more for the entertainment factor and kind of bring in the eyeballs, not so much where it's like, for example, since for you've trained since you were a kid, and were they wrestlers, both of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they wrestled and then now newer to boxing.
Boxing now has like kind of shifted gears, whereas before it was just one lane, a boxer is a boxer is a boxer.
Yeah.
Now it's like they're never gonna fight a real boxer. They're never gonna fight, the likes of Canelo. That's never gonna happen.
Even though that's on his hit list.
I know he says that, but I mean he's never gonna fight. He's never gonna fight Canelo. He's never gonna fight Logan Paul's never gonna fight Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury. So that everyone stays in their own lane, and that's the way it should be.
But what about Tommy Fury? Where is he on the spectrum? And we're gonna get into it because you were in Tyson Fury's camp.
Yeah. No, that's weird because he is on. If we're talking about lanes, he's like on the divider. He's right there in the middle.
Is it because he was on Love Island?
Yeah, I mean
is that a show?
Yeah,
Is he on a show?
He's huge over the UK. He's huge over there.
It's like the Bachelor. The equivalent of that in the UK. That's the way I understand it.
He does not look like a boxer at all. Like he doesn't. He takes the saying "pretty boy" to another level. He looks like a movie star, and everybody says that. He is a movie star. I mean, he's a reality TV
I've never
star.
seen it.
Well,
though.
ironically, his last opponent, who was in Jake Paul's corner, was Anthony Pretty Boy Taylor. And
really?
In fact, we were just with him on Saturday night because he's a Bellator fighter. Yeah. He was at the Bellator. I was just talking to him. And I think that kind of fight really kind of exposed, or at least told the tale of where Tommy Fury's at 6-0, maybe now he's 7-0 in his boxing career, like where his skill level is. And I feel like Jake's next opponent, if we were to guess and throw, put things out there,
it would be great if Tommy Fury fought Jake Paul. That's something Tyson wants. It's a mixture of it just gets people talking. That's a cool story, and that would be great if Jake Paul fought. That would be his first time fighting someone with a record in boxing. So that would be I think entertaining to watch.
Well, what about MMA fighters getting into boxing? Like when we saw Vitor Belfort fight Evander Holyfield and Anderson Silva.
Silva looks great right now.
He does.
No, Silva looks amazing. Silva looks amazing. He could definitely. There's not a lot of MMA guys who can cross over, and you could say that this guy could have made a career in boxing 100%. If he never did MMA. And I think Anderson Silva is the greatest MMA fighter of all time. He could have been just as good in boxing. Yeah, and you can't say that about a lot of fighters.
How old is he?
He's 44, 46.
Wow. If he was 15 years younger, he would be in boxing. He would be champion.
Yeah,
for sure.
I could totally see it too. Just his style, his length, and he's so cerebral. And
he's got fighting IQ.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And not a lot of people have that.
So I'm not sure if we caught this because we started rolling the podcast, but you were talking about being in Tyson Fury's camp even till about a month ago when everyone had to disperse because of the whole COVID scare and situation. Yeah. And we started talking about Deontay Wilder. I think Deontay Wilder's side, they even thought that was kind of a hoax as well too.
It's so stupid. I mean, I think that is so ridiculous. I don't know if he actually believes that it was a hoax. Why would anybody lie?
Wilder?
Yeah. Why would anybody lose? I mean, you got to think they lost millions of dollars. They lost millions of dollars. Whether it be Top Rank, Bob Arum, that's a payday for Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. Why would you lie?
Yeah.
To postpone it.
Conjoined thing. It's PBC, Fox, Top Rank, ESPN.
Everyone's losing money when you have to cancel a fight like that. But I can tell you, it was not fake because I was there. And I just barely missed getting COVID. I'm vaccinated, and I saw the people that not introduced COVID to the camp, but got COVID from the camp, and they had COVID.
So walk us through what happened. Like, take us back to that time. Like, how everybody found out and what the scene was like since then.
Well, everything was like kept under wraps, but what I know is I was training in the gym. I go
top ranked gym.
Right. I train with my Sugar Hill Stewart is my trainer, which is also Tyson's trainer. So Tyson would come into the gym early, and then I would come into the gym right after him, and I would see him before I start my workout because Sugar goes from him to me. And then he stopped coming into the gym because there was a ton of people getting into the gym with cameras or, just other fighters that want to be just kind of around that atmosphere. So the gym was getting crowded, so they had to start locking down, rules for the gym. And then I noticed he stopped coming in. I was like, I hope everything's okay. Then his sparring partners tested positive, and I didn't know till last minute. I was calling Sugar to make sure everything was okay with him. Last minute, they announced that Tyson was positive too.
Wow.
So, and then that ruined, obviously, the fight. They had to completely cancel it. So no one would lie about that. I think that's stupid.
Of course.
Or even in the beginning, what was it he was saying? He thought Tyson put egg weights?
Yeah, the excuses leading up to it is there's egg weights, the body armor was like an extra 50 pounds or something.
In the gloves, right?
Yeah, in the gloves.
Yeah. They were saying Wilder said it was egg weights. He mentioned that his suit was a little too heavy.
Too heavy.
But I think the egg weights, he also said his water was spiked, but I think the egg weights thing is a compliment, because obviously no commission allows at that level. For my fight, I couldn't put in a piece of paper. I couldn't slip in a note into my glove. So, at that level, they would not allow something as crazy as that.
I guess that just means he hits hard, right?
I mean, you saw the dent and the side of the temple. Yeah. But it's such baloney to me, just the whole type of tale, because the whole interaction of going in the locker room and watching someone get their hands taped and everything before fight. Heck, that's what started the feud between Tyron Woodley and Jake Paul in the first place. Mm-hmm. When Ben Askren was boxing in Atlanta, where you're going to be fighting, for your next pro fight in Atlanta, and behind the scenes in the locker room where Jake Paul was getting his hands wrapped, Tyron Woodley was watching, and that's where they had a verbal spat.
I don't really agree with the other team going into their locker room. I think that makes that kind of opens a door for a feud to happen, or for something to happen, because you see that a lot. That happened a lot with that happened with Mayweather Pacquiao. That happened with Mayweather Maidana, I think. That happened with Golovkin Canelo. So having another, I think it's best to have a neutral party go to each person's locker room and then watch them, because having my team go to your team is just you're trying to start something.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. I can.
Yeah.
We briefly brought up Mayweather, but obviously when you drive to Las Vegas, you see the TMT signs, the Mayweather signs. It's a big thing. Part of his legacy is the O, the 50-0, the undefeated and stuff like that. And with your grandfather, I don't think it mattered to him, I mean, obviously wins and losses matter, but what mattered more to him, not that record, but the quality, the legacy of who he was fighting and what he was fighting for. Mm-hmm. Did you ever get a kind of sense, I know you guys were a lot younger and everything like that, how he kind of felt about Mayweather, because he was the guy of, this generation that we've all kind of grown up in?
I remember when we were young, we told him how much Mayweather got paid in one of his fights. I forgot which fight it was, but his eyes was like, because they didn't get paid like that back then in boxing. Right. So I do remember mentioning that to him.
He didn't pay a lot of attention to the new fighters, because obviously in his old age he was more concerned with watching westerns and movies at home. But I would say the biggest thing is that when I think of the greatest fighters of all time, obviously I'm biased. I put my grandfather number one, but I think of Ray Robinson, and then I think of Manny Pacquiao. When I think of these guys, I don't know how many times they lost, and each one of them lost, multiple times. So I would say losing doesn't matter when you're at that level where like you're making fights where like the first time my grandfather fought Joe Frazier, that's on ESPN's list of like greatest fights of all time. He lost that fight, but it was still one of the greatest fights of all time. I think that's what matters. That's the legacy that you create.
Like he fought Pacquiao, but I just wish it was sooner. Like I still wish it was sooner.
I was going
to
bring that up. Yeah. You took it from my. We all did. 2015. They were both in their mid 30s, mid to late 30s. It was too late.
I was a little kid. I'm like, dude, fight Pacquiao. Like
I know.
I was a little kid saying that too.
I feel like it would have made more money if they did fight in their prime.
But that's what I sit here and shout on this podcast. What grinds me, because we cover so much. It's like, why can't the best fighters always fight the best fighters? Like if I look at the welterweight division, I've been shouting Crawford and Spence have been shouting it, but I do love the fact that Crawford is fighting Sean Porter because now we're finally seeing that high crop quality of
that's
PBC.
Here in Vegas in November.
Yes, we'll be there.
Awesome. Yeah.
I love seeing the high crop quality of welterweights from PBC fighting Top Rank because that's how it should be. But like the best fighters have to fight the best fighters.
I completely agree with that.
Too many belts.
Yeah.
Too many. That's a whole. Yeah, that's a whole nother issue. But it's like the fighters. Mayweather's one of the greats. Mayweather's one of the greats for sure. I think he's one of the greatest defensive fighters.
I might argue he's the best defensive fighter.
Yeah, he might be the best. He might be the best defensive fighter
too. But
like,
I would agree on that. Too.
That's where that argument, or that's where the conversation ends there. Like I don't put Mayweather, unfortunately, on like my top 5 of all time greats, just because he was so defensive. He was defensively perfect, but people don't always want to watch that. So I think of like Mayweather Pacquiao. If it were to happen sooner, it would have been way better. And people are now more concerned with just having an undefeated record.
And we're still talking about that too.
Yeah,
like we're still talking about how.
But that's what they added to the sport. Like Mayweather added that the O matters. I don't think it does. I don't think it does at all.
And that's why I think MMA, specifically the UFC.
I love that from MMA and the UFC.
It's centralized.
Nobody cares if you lose. If you're putting on a show, it doesn't matter.
Best fighters fight the best fighters. No excuses. That's how it should be in combat sports. That's how you find out who's the best.
The only person that I know undefeated from MMA is Khabib.
Khabib.
The Eagle. That's true. The Eagle, man.
That's it. But I mean, other than that, like. I respect so much that the UFC and just MMA fighters in general, when they lose, it doesn't matter because they still fight the best. And it shows that even after you lose, you can still be the best,
What's interesting, though, too, with Khabib 29-0, and yes, the only undefeated one that we talk about, but he also, like, if you look at some of the all-time greats in the sport, too, they fought in multiple weight divisions. You brought up Anderson Silva. Like, he's fought at light heavyweight and at middleweight. Daniel Cormier, the champion at heavyweight and light heavyweight. You see guys going for Conor McGregor, the champ statuses, too. So it's kind of interesting to see how people perceive greatness and what the individual athletes do to chase that greatness.
I think if any fighter, whether it be boxing or MMA, if you fight the best fighters out there, you will lose at some point. But the great thing is that once you do lose, you can come back and show that you it doesn't matter that you did lose. My grandfather lost to Joe Frazier, but he never lost to anybody more than once. He
also came back and beat him too.
That's right.
Right.
But you, at this point in your career, having your second pro fight, looking to go 2-0, like, don't you think the records, especially in boxing, they matter so much more, especially in these first few fights when you're starting out your career than let's say in mixed martial arts? Like, there's such a value.
That's why it's different. Boxing in mixed martial arts is different from like the starting of the career. Some people go straight into the UFC with a couple of fights, even whether it be amateur MMA fights. They don't have a big record, Lomachenko had almost 400 amateur fights. You'll never see an MMA fighter having 400 amateur MMA fights. It just doesn't happen. But right now, as a novice, I would say, starting off in boxing, record does matter. But if I fought, my second fight is coming up. For my third fight, if I fought Mayweather and lost, that's what a way to lose that would be. It would be, or if I fought, let's say, Canelo, my third fight, that'd be an amazing loss. That wouldn't be a loss to me, that would I would gain experience from that, and that's what happened actually with Canelo and Mayweather.
Yep.
Yeah,
Canelo's career is just soared.
Yeah.
Like, he is the face of boxing right now. Like, in terms of talent, if you're a boxing purist, who is the best pound for pound boxer in the world right now? I think of Canelo.
He's one of my favorites of all time. When I'm mentioning that 5 list of all time, Canelo's in my all time list of greats. That's how much I think he's just ridiculous.
And he's about to fight Caleb Plant.
Does Caleb have a chance?
Yeah. How do you see that play out?
Caleb Plant trains at City Boxing.
It's the first boxer I ever interviewed.
Really?
I love Caleb.
Yeah, no, I know his wife. And so Caleb, that is going to be such a great fight. I'm so glad that fight is happening.
Me too.
Because people wanted to see that.
Yeah, that's gonna be
unify
good.
the belts.
And Caleb Plant is not afraid of anybody.
Nope.
Canelo is not afraid of anybody. Those are the kind of fights that need to be made. I think it's going to be a great fight.
I do too. I think he'll fight him better than Billy Joe Saunders. I think he learned a lot.
I think he's smarter
than.
I think he's. I think Caleb's boxing IQ might be better than Billy Joe Saunders.
I agree with that. I agree with that too. And he's got. I mean, his nickname's Sweet Hands. He's got fast hands. Good footwork too. This is the ultimate test for him. This
Definitely.
probably is the biggest payday of his career.
Definitely.
And well deserved. I know he's been working so hard for this moment. I want to see something very competitive, and I'm very happy that this is the fight.
I think we'll see that.
I really do. Yeah, I think you will. I think you will.
Press conference too, Beverly Hilton.
Ooh, that's gonna be good.
Up.
Yeah, I think that. So this will air tomorrow. So the day this airs tomorrow, it'll be going on at the same time. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
be
awesome.
Cool.
I'm gonna watch that. I know Caleb Plant's photographer is my photographer for some of the stuff that I shoot with Top Rank. So a lot of Team Plant people here in Las Vegas. This is where he resides, of course.
Yeah.
So I'm excited, to watch that fight.
And for you, like we mentioned, so you made your pro debut in August. You're fighting again in October. For yourself and your personal goals, like how often would you like to fight kind of in, the beginning stages of your career, your pro career?
I think staying busy is so important. As an amateur, it was so hard for me to find fights. I would get them so sporadically, and that's not good. Because I stayed in shape from my first fight. I didn't put on any weight really, so that's ideal. Fighting. They've already got my fight for December ready, which they haven't announced yet. I don't even know if I'm supposed to be saying anything, but I have my fight for December already set. They want me to fight that they want me to stay busy. That's what Aaron wanted, and I love that idea.
And are you still a full-time student?
Oh my God, yeah.
Damn, at UNLV.
Same here, yeah.
And you're
still got like 2 more
awful.
semesters, yeah.
It's awful.
That's
it's awful.
I can't envision being a college student during this time with this all going on.
Tough,
you
man.
guys are back on campus, or
mine are online.
Yeah, online.
Mine are online.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I've never had to work so hard for school in my life. Last night I was up till 2 a.m. Taking a test for UNLV.
Damn.
And it's just crazy. I've never had to work that hard for school.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's weird. COVID changed like the whole kind of like school system thing with the online and the Zoom and stuff, and just the way assignments are due and stuff.
Oh man.
Do you prefer that more, where it's like, okay, you gotta do it at home or
See,
something?
I thought I
love
would.
that.
I thought I would.
Some people don't though.
But
yeah.
I personally, like, I learned better in person. Like,
Okay.
that's just me. I thought I'd like the online because I can, just chill,
Yeah.
But yeah, I gotta learn in person. That's just me.
I
though.
love online. I mean, I'm different because the way it is most of the time it's like lectures. So like he'll go to a class and it'll be an hour and 15 minutes is like the normal time. And you just got to pay attention that whole time. I don't like that. I like online because it's recorded. So it's an hour and 15 minutes. You know how much time you have to watch. I'll watch 30 minutes and just pay 100% attention, and then I'll wait and then finish the rest later, because there's no way I can pay 100% of my attention for an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, I couldn't do that.
Yeah, no, I can't.
I can't imagine what that's like.
No, it's not fun at all.
I did want to kind of circle back to one last thing with the whole Jake Paul situation and boxing too, because I love history. I'm a historian. I look at not just like how sports from chronologically, how did we get to where we are today? I look at life that way too. But my whole fear in this situation and the popularity with the rise of social media is these kids today that aren't paying attention to the history of the sport, that know everything that your grandfather did and what he stood for, and the people behind him, the Joe Frazier's and all that. They look at Jake Paul, and to them, he is their Muhammad Ali. To me, that's wild. But I've had these conversations with people generations younger than me, and just being around this scene, and I'm seeing this, and it's bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, it is a new era for sure. You know, I'd like for them to do a little bit more research, you know, just to see, you know, who he was and who who might have also inspired the Pauls to bring the eyes, you know, because that's what my grandfather did, and that's exactly what they're doing. So all I can say is, you know, do some research.
The way I look at like the Jake Paul situation is, or the Jake Paul situation is like I said, like the whole lane thing. It's like you got to stay in your lane. Anytime you try to get out of your lane, you're gonna get hurt, and you know it's happened before. So if Jake Paul, you know, you say Canelo's on his hit list, like he said that. If Jake Paul were to actually fight Canelo, I don't think they would allow that to happen. But if that were to happen, that would be devastating. You know, I know Jake Paul's a villain, but he would get seriously hurt, and that would kind of squash the whole YouTube boxing scene. But I think when kids see, you know, Jake Paul, they're like, oh, he's great. But then his last fight, he fought Tyron Woodley. He's like stepping up, you know, the level of competition each fight. But with Tyron Woodley, he got hurt in that fight a little bit, you know. Yeah. So I would say the kids who are watching him, they could watch Jake Paul and then Canelo and then be like, oh, well, that's the difference, you know. So it depends who you ask, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then if you look at like today's boxers too, this generation, I look at people like Devin Haney, obviously, Teofimo Lopez, Ryan Garcia, and what can they do to stand out, to be that talk of this sport? Yourself to include in this list as you progress too, but like, how can the narrative be around the people that have put their blood, sweat, and tears for decades and grew up in this be about those guys rather than these YouTubers?
I love, you know, I don't like taking away from the fighters who put, you know, their lives on the line. Really, like literally. And Ryan Garcia has done a great job, I think, he's probably the biggest up-and-coming boxer today in terms of his social
status.
Social status, you know, his fan base. He's got a huge fan base because he was able to get out of boxing and grab fan bases from YouTube or TikTok or, you know, whatever. So... and he still puts in the work, you know. So he's the kind of guy where if you want that much attention, I would never want that much attention. But if you want that, then, you know, you do what he does. You work hard, you put your life on the line, and on your off time, you can, you know, grab other fan bases. He does YouTube stuff or whatever. You know?
The whole different audience thing just brings more eyes, you know, and they're great at doing that. So. Or Ryan Garcia and the Paul brothers. Yeah,
definitely. But for you, Nico, when you first started boxing, I mean, I'm assuming you were around 7? Or?
I was like 10. When my first time in a ring, yeah.
Okay, what was your grandpa's reaction, you know, when he found out, like, this is what you want to do and pursue?
Well, the first time I ever stepped in the ring, it was for a children's cancer exhibition. It was just, you know, messing around. Like I was wearing my gym I was wearing like
Vans.
I was wearing Vans. I was wearing just shoes, and it was just with no training whatsoever. They just wanted me to go in, and I was in, and they yelled for me to do the Ali shuffle, and then I did the shuffle, and my shoes fell off, and it was just fun, and that was my first experience in boxing. I didn't take it serious until 14. And then that's when I told him about that and would ask him a bunch of questions about it. And yeah, I would say since then, that's when I started taking it seriously. That's when I started my amateur career, like officially.
And what was the best advice he's given you?
I would say he believed that what makes a fighter is them moving and dancing, he believed that what makes a fighter is an interesting fighter. He didn't say, he could have told me an undefeated fighter. He could have told me, a highly skilled fighter, but he didn't say that. He said like interesting, So, and that's what matters. And I've always thought about that. So that's what I strive to be, is an interesting fighter.
And I must say, I love both of your dynamics, because I love, like, you guys are 2 years apart? Because I have an older sister, and she's like about 2.5 years older than me. And we grew up playing sports together. Like, we swam on the same swim team and stuff. And I just love how supportive you are of one another. Like,
well, I think it's because we grew up within the same our family loves family. Yeah. But we're like really close in age, like 1.5 to 2 years apart. Yeah. It's perfect. If he was 5 years older, then he would be off somewhere else right now.
Will you be his strength and conditioning coach as he progresses?
That would be really interesting.
I'm working on it. Yeah, I've definitely thought about that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
First, I want to get my my certifications and everything, because to get my CSCS, I gotta have a bachelor's. So I've got to finish school first, and then we'll see from there. I'm just enjoying the journey, enjoying life.
That's excellent, man. It's on the importance, though, of kind of the social media, and especially in combat sports, what I've noticed, too, it's so much different than the team sports, like football, the NFL. Yeah. You have, like, a whole PR staff kind of helping control the narrative. You have the NFL Films, the NFL Network, the NBA Network, and so on. But in this sport, you're only as good as your next fight. It's a very individual sport.
Right.
And the UFC, like from a media standpoint in all of combat sports, they're really good at building stars. But some of the organizations out there too, I mean, I get it, it's not their responsibility, but it puts a lot of pressure on someone like yourself to build an audience outside of what you do inside the ring.
I would say that I'm in a unique situation where I'm not worried about building my audience, because obviously I wouldn't be in the position I'm in right now if it weren't for my grandfather. So the fans of my grandfather, I can automatically, I've gotten so much love and support from just my one fight. They're becoming fans of me. So I'm unique in that case, where I don't have to have I don't have to be crazy and do wild things to get attention and to get people to buy tickets. People will buy tickets if they love my grandfather, and if I continue to prosper in boxing, they'll buy tickets not only because they love my grandfather, but because they want to see me fight.
Well, do you ever feel that you get pressure thinking, like you said, the fans who love your grandfather will follow you, or that they would have that same expectations from you? Even though you guys obviously are completely different.
We're completely different, yeah. And I knew when I first went into boxing, I didn't really know my grandfather was as, notable as he is. I didn't think it would be a big deal. I just loved boxing. But I don't think it's a lot of pressure for his true fans. My grandfather's true fans would be fans of mine if I lost my next 10 fights. So that's what I think about, and I really do think that's true.
So tell me what the ultimate end goal is, and does it involve kind of separating and building a legacy for yourself?
Yeah, no, it's all about, I'm continuing my grandfather's legacy. I love that, but ultimately I want to create my own path, and I think that's what I'm gonna do. Because I just stay true to myself, and I'm similar to my grandfather in a lot of ways, as many people are similar to their family members, but I'm so much different. Everyone's unique in their own way, and I think that's good. Nobody can be nobody could be Biaggio. Nobody could be me. Nobody could be you guys, and that's perfect, because everyone's got their own fingerprint. Everyone's unique, and people want to see unique.
I love the tattoo on your forearm. I don't know why. I'm just noticing it now. But your grandfather and the butterfly there. Like,
Thank you.
And
yeah.
you have the butterfly and a bee.
I got the butterfly and the
That
bee
is
right here.
awesome.
Yeah. I got this right before I went to college, so senior year of high school.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
No, I mean, I was never gonna get tattoos, but you know, I had to.
That's
ended up
a
getting
great portrait. Like they
Thank
did
you.
an incredible
Thank you.
job.
Yeah, no, I got it done here in town by Robert Foe. It's weird because I was in high school when I got the portrait, and I was in a camera class. I was in a photography class, and after I got the tattoo, my photography teacher revealed to me that he used to shoot for my grandfather. I was like, that's awesome. He said, wait, let me see that photo. It was his photo.
no way.
Yeah.
What?
Here, lift that up so the camera
That is
could.
crazy.
This one right here. That's amazing.
Wow.
That's wild.
It is. I mean, the chances of that are ridiculous.
But
I mean,
like you guys said, everything happens for a reason, right?
right? Yeah,
Right?
it's fate. Everything
That's
lines up.
amazing.
And every time you
So
stick
weird.
that right hand, you know, that vision is
Yeah.
going to come into your
Wow.
opponents too.
Yeah.
and
It's
sparring,
crazy.
going to fight.
That photo teacher shot a little bit for my grandfather, and now he's my photographer as well. He shot for my first fight. He was there, so that was a little part of history that I also just loved.
So how did you guys, you know, we kind of started off talking about it too, you know, believing in everything happens for a reason, connecting the dots. Like, what are these specific moments that have happened so far through the journey for you guys to kind of have this kind of way of thinking? Because we think similar to that too with our respective journeys, but with you guys, I mean, that's very unique.
I feel like it's always small things, you know, the whole unfinished legacy with the T-shirt. The fact that our old photography teacher shot that photo and he got a tattoo of it. His first fight was our uncle who had passed away. Well, my dad's best friend, we called our uncle, had passed away. That was his birthday, his first fight.
Yeah, it's the small stuff
it's
like
just
that.
small things like that I feel like
small stuff.
But
yeah.
it happens for a reason.
Did
you know?
that all start happening like since you were a kid? You realized like, oh wow, like what a
No.
coincidence.
You know what? I would say it happens to everyone. I would in my family, my mom, my grandfather, obviously, are very spiritual, huge on religion and stuff. So I would say you just have to notice it.
Yeah.
I think it happens to everyone, but nobody.
I
really
feel like I
picks it
didn't
up.
start noticing until maybe like a couple years ago. Yeah, just seeing like cool things like that.
Just
Like,
weird coincidences, you know.
Yeah.
And after a coincidence happens, you know, more than one time, 2 times, 3 times, then it's like it's not a coincidence. I would say.
And
it's,
I feel like that
fate.
happens in everybody's life. You just gotta like start seeing it. You know,
Yeah.
you just start noticing, and when you start noticing, you're like, oh, okay, like
Right.
happens to everybody.
It's a sign of maturation and knowing you're on the right path.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? You see signs knowing that you're going the wrong way too.
Yep.
Yes.
And those are important too.
So for college, what's your major now? Because you mentioned your photography teacher. So are you more into like?
I love
photography?
film.
Yeah.
I love film. One day I'm gonna be definitely going into film. That's also been another passion of mine. But I'm majoring in business entrepreneurship, which is just, you know, it's tough.
Yeah, entrepreneur.
That's key though, but like I think from what you just said, majoring in business and entrepreneurship, a passion for film, and doing what you do.
And I'm majoring in film too, so like he's got the business side, I got the film insight, you know.
that's
Your lives are a movie, and you guys
I
can
know.
document
Yeah,
that.
no,
too.
and
It really is.
And
I would love that.
It's fun. I mean, you can mix everything. My biggest passions in my life have been film and boxing for, you know, as long as I can remember. So you can put that together and you can make something happen.
And I love that you guys are pursuing your passion, because we've talked about it before where we feel so many people are kind of afraid to pursue
But
what
where
they
I'm
want.
also though afraid is everyone, these children growing up now too, they see success on TikTok and YouTubers and like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be an influencer. I want to be this. And it's like, there is so much hard work that goes into whatever you do, and you cannot lose authenticity into being true to who you are. You can't sacrifice.
That's a big thing.
It's a huge thing, and I feel like there's a huge disconnect just from, you know, I tried my best to talk to as many young people as possible, because the only way I can cater to the audience that I'm looking for is to kind of get a sense of understanding what they want. And I'm just so fearful of the direction of where we go into today, and that's why I brought up the history and the YouTube boxing and everything too. Is I don't want the important lessons that brought us to where we are today to be lost, so history repeats itself and we make the same mistakes.
No, I think about that too, man. I hope we are going in the right direction. We don't know, but we'll see.
I think the biggest thing is I've noticed just within the last couple of years is staying true to yourself.
Yeah.
For every individual person, it's important because you see people who look up to, let's say, Conor McGregor, and then they start trying to be like him, and nobody likes that. Nobody likes someone trying to be like someone else. You can look up to someone and try to take things, but like when you have to go out of your own character to try and be like someone else, that never works out. Mm-hmm. So I would say Conor McGregor is unique. Like, to say the least. You look at him, he's unique. You look at, just influencers in general, like Ryan Garcia is super unique, and it's these people that are unique that people want to see, so I would never, for the kids who want to grow up to be influencers, I would never want them to want to be somebody else, You can be an influencer, but be yourself as an influencer,
You take inspirations from other people. Like Sean O'Malley,
Right.
He didn't try to be Conor McGregor.
No, and he's his own person.
He's his own person.
He's completely his own person. And I love that. I love Sean O'Malley.
Yeah,
too.
he's awesome.
Yeah.
He's great. We had him on our podcast before the fight week of his last fight against Chris Moutinho.
That's awesome, man.
I think he was tied. I don't know if I thought I saw something today where he might be fighting Brian Keller next.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I was going to text you that this morning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was at the
interesting.
gym.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I don't know who's going to smoke more weed before that fight.
I'm going to have to
that'll be interesting to
look
see.
that up after.
Yeah, but it's
I'd like to meet Sean one day.
Oh,
he
he's
seems
great.
like such a cool guy.
I'm sure you guys will meet.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, he's a really chill dude.
Yeah.
He's really cool.
That's dope.
Just to reiterate your point too, and I say this all the time: if you're not first, be different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you can't be afraid.
Yep.
You can't.
And
be
it's
afraid.
so, I mean, people say that it's so hard to be different nowadays. It's really not. If you are yourself, completely yourself, then you're different, because there's no
That's
way
true.
you can replicate.
Yeah.
There's no way.
And that holds so much weight coming from you guys under the shadow that was casted above you guys that you had no choice. You were born into.
Of course. Yeah. No, I mean, I was, I've never not been the grandson of, whoever, but all we can do is, be ourselves.
It's crazy. Growing up, it was always a secret. Like, we never told anybody like who our grandfather was, because we didn't think people would believe us or anything like that. Or we're not the type that tells you, like, oh, my grandpa's famous, It was like my freshman year when I played football, Max Preps had picked it up.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know how they even found that out. Like, I have no idea how they found that out.
Right.
And, everybody just started knowing that I was the grandson of Muhammad Ali, and kind of just the rest is history.
So that probably your freshman year, then probably you were 7th grade around that time, 8th grade around that time?
His freshman year, I was 8th grade.
8th grade, yeah.
So that's kind of when that narrative kind of started taking its place in the public
I still
eye.
have no idea how like Max Preps found that out.
In the
It
public
was probably
they-
like
they
a
find
friend
some
that told a friend or something.
No,
like, I have no
people
idea.
always find out, even on lower levels. Being in school, being at UNLV, people find out. Being in being not in high school, in middle school, people would find out on small little levels. One person says one thing and it
then
spreads.
they talk.
Yeah.
It spreads fast.
You're gonna have a target on your back for every single
Oh, yeah.
opponent too.
I
You're
know.
gonna get their best fight every single time.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, and that's interesting because I'll be fighting the best version of each person that I fight. That'll be fun.
That adds to your legacy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And for you, Biaggio, what are your goals and your plans? Because like you mentioned, you're also studying film as well.
Yeah,
Like,
so
is
I'm
it directing?
studying film right now. I would like to do something with film after. I'm not so sure yet, but I wish I would have done something like kinesiology or something like that. That way I know a little bit more about, the human body and the
Anatomy.
science behind working out and
Yeah.
and movement and stuff. So I wish I would have done something like that, but I'm going to finish out my bachelor's with film because luckily you don't need a a specific degree if you want to get your CSCS for strength and conditioning. So you just need a degree or a bachelor's degree. So I'm just gonna finish film out, see where that goes. I could have that in my back pocket whenever I need it.
Yeah, I just think you two together. I think movie. That's what I'm thinking big picture.
It's definitely gonna be a horror movie too. We're big horror movie guys.
Fans,
yeah.
Favorite horror movie?
The Shining for me.
That or Halloween, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Halloween is probably the greatest horror movie of all time.
Jack Nicholson killed it, man.
He did. Would you consider Silence of the Lambs a horror movie?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I would say that's a thriller.
That's like a psychological thriller. Yeah, psychological thriller.
But I think the greatest horror movie of all time is just Halloween, because that kind of set the tone for every other movie. And when you hear Michael Myers, when you hear the name, when you hear the song, the sound, it's like the first thing you think is Halloween. Not the movie, but Halloween.
That's the one character I really didn't like that much when I was little, because he just stands there, and it made me very uncomfortable when I was like in first grade. Just seeing the man just stand there and look at you.
I was exposed. My best friend growing up, like he had an older sister, so at 3-4 years old, we saw all the It movies. We lost this light. I saw the
Speaking
It movies.
of Halloween, right?
I was timing.
Who's flickering the lights?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I really liked Hellraiser.
Yeah.
That's the kind of shit. I would have the
Pennywise.
He loves that.
I love
the red balloon.
No, I love. That's one of my. I think that is my favorite horror character, I would say.
Mine's definitely Chucky.
Chucky's
I was watching
Chucky.
Child's Play when I was like 2, and my aunt was babysitting me, and my mom, he was like just born.
Yeah.
And I was watching Child's Play when I was like 2 years old. My aunt was watching me. My mom came and she's like, "What are you having him watch?" And big fan of Chucky.
On my to-do list for interviews is the Schmo character. It's John Gruden, and I feel like I'll kind of reveal this too. I need to whip out a Chucky doll and put him side by side.
That would be great.
I have to do that because he's Chucky. That's
wow. Yeah, that would be awesome.
He's funny.
He's great.
If you watch the movies, he's hilarious.
Oh yeah. Hey, knock on wood if you're with me. I love that too. We really appreciate having you guys on the show. Is there anything?
Thank you for having us.
Of course. Is there anything you want to plug? Let the world know you got a fight coming up next month. Floor's yours.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of my fight, you can just follow my Instagram at Nico Ali Walsh, NicoAliWalsh, and that's pretty much it. I update whatever I can from there.
I'm just grateful to be here and excited to see where everything's going.
For sure.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much.
Of course. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, we look forward to following along both of your journey.
Thanks again 100%. For having us.
Of course. Episode 77 of the Schmozone podcast. We are out.